All right, and now we are recording. Hi, everybody! Pleasure having you here right now. Welcome. This is the kind of sample, kind of promo class for the Calvin and Hobbes thing. The Calvin and Hobbes thing? Our Calvin and Hobbes and words. Our Calvin and Hobbes and the subtle art of close reading. I will be your host tonight, Brandon Hendrickson. Oh, look, it even came up right there when I did that. I'm going to kind of give us the mile high sort of version of us understanding what the heck this thing is, in case you are sort of feel like you are unclear about that. I'm going to do something that I never ever do in any of the classes. I am going to just keep the chat on. And here's the one thing that I would like folks to use the chat for, and nothing else, please. Ask questions, right? Any questions that you can think of as they come to you, type them in there, hit enter. It may be a few minutes until I get the chance to answer that. That's fine. I ask this respectfully. Don't put anything else in there, no comments, no anything like that, at least not right now. I can offer that for later. Because it'll distract me and make it hard, it'll make it almost certain that I end up missing some of the questions. So let me turn the camera, no, not a camera, the chat on. A thing that we can do right now that I don't usually do in the, what's the phrase? In the classes that I teach is I will let people raise their Zoom hands. And I will call on you, and you can also ask a question just out loud. In a few minutes, we're going to do a thing where we ask people to, actually read out loud, read some Calvin and Hobbes strips out loud. Now, when we do this in an actual class, which will begin next week, same time, you will not be seeing these strips for the first time. You'll be seeing these strips and you'll have the whole week to have taken a look at them. One more reminder, please don't say hi or anything like that. It'll be distracting and it'll make it hard for me to see the questions. I will hereby pledge to kick out the next 3 people who chat anything that is not the questions. I feel like, for those of you who don't know me, I come across as an overbearing ogre. I promise you that is what everybody thinks about me. No, not usually. It's just that I get very easily distracted, and I don't want to get distracted during this. Okay, so what do I want to say about this? Lots of things. Okay, so close reading. Welcome to this whole thing that we are talking about. To give a sense of this, my name is Brandon. I run this organization called Science is Weird. It's a fun organization. What we want as parents, what we want as human beings is a couple things, right? Well, many things. Too many things, really. Let's not get all stoic on this. It's to have our kids and to ourselves learn to read wonderfully, be these powerful, energetic, hungry readers. My life is different and is wonderful specifically because I am a hungry, voracious reader. I, walk into a bookstore and just pick out everything. Walk into a library, pick out everything, scan the books, x-ray the books, read some of the books deeply. My life has been changed so many times by books. And if there's one thing that I can do in the world, it's I want to be able to spread this, not just the love of the books, but the actual experience of being able to read so many books to as many people as I possibly can. It's hard to do that. There are a lot of problems that get in our way when we try to become these amazing readers. Some people just naturally take to it, but for a lot of us, right, it's kind of hard. It didn't come immediately to me. And the purpose of this class is to be one way of trying to get beyond that. Not just that, all of these potential problems. This, I'm going to tell you the truth, is totally not going to work for everybody. And it totally will work for a lot of people. The question that you should be thinking of right now is, will this work for me? And I'd be happy to, as honestly as I can, answer any questions that I can about this. So feel free to start typing in those questions. Once upon a time, I was an evil SAT coach. I worked with a lot of people for 15 years or something like that. And I had the unenviable task of, I don't know, is it enviable? I enjoyed my life quite a lot at the time, of taking people who really didn't know very many words. I mean, some of them were getting perfect scores in the reading section to begin with, but most of them were not. Most of them, high schoolers these days, hardly ever read. It's actually a great sadness of mine. I think it's because of the way that we structured high schools and it's in society in general. I think it's terrible. But I had the task of helping people who hardly ever read try to become ridiculously good readers in a ridiculously short amount of time, right? Weeks or months. So I had to get really into the whole science of how does one learn not just reading, but words specifically, hard words, whatever that means, specifically really quickly. Because specifically for the SAT, right? It's so much based on how many words that you know. If you're well, but I don't really care about the vocabulary so much, you're not wrong to say that. But there's something else that's been going on that you should keep an open mind for the moment about learning lots and lots of words. The way that people ordinarily, in my contexts, learn a bunch of words is that they use flashcards and they have a word on one side and a whole long definition on the other side. That's stupid. Your brain cannot remember this really long definition when a word. You can like push these things into your head, and like if you do that enough, it will stick. But you don't want to do that. So this is terrible. Never do this to anybody. A slightly better way was when I would see vocabulary curricula that would have the word and then just the quick synonym on the other side. Better. It's better, but really we're starting from a very low base from this. A still better way of doing this was to have an actual like piece of literature, a novel, sometimes a very old novel, that would have on the text, the actual text of the novel, Dracula, something like that, Frankenstein, on one side with all of the really interesting words that people might not know, highlighted, underlined, whatever, and then on the other side to give the explanations for what those words actually meant. This was great. This was fantastic. Because it gave words in context. It gave words, usually when these words were defined, they were just defined like in a really simple way, which is great because it got stuck in your head. There's only one problem, one extra problem to this. Yeah, I'll actually say that. There's only one problem with this. And that is, I wonder if you can figure this out. There's no reason, most of the time when you're reading a novel, to learn all the words. A novel should not depend on one word. You can just kind of like read it and kind of get the sense of what's going on. So what is needed is an approach that takes all the advantages of this, but actually takes it to the next level. I want to actually just take a quick break for a second and address the question of why is it that you need to learn vocabulary? Because my gosh, you really, like to an underappreciated extent, people really just do need to learn so many words if they want to become powerful readers. Really quick question. This is the one time that I'm going to ask this for everyone to chat in something, and I'll just be one single number. In order to read a text fluently, what percent of the words do you need to know? So you can type in like 99%, you can type in, 52%, just type in that one number and hit enter right now. I'll give you 10 seconds to do that. Curious. Aphids. 5, 4, 3, 2. So, okay, stop, please. I'm going to hit the stop chat thing, and then I'll turn it back on in a minute, and people can go back to only and only posting questions for this. So, we actually know this number really, really well because when a person learns to read in another language, we can really easily measure like how many words that they know. We can test fluency. So this is actually something that we know scientifically. The answer is approximately 99%. 99%. That's a lot. To an extent that I did not appreciate before I got into SAT prep, one of the reasons that people dislike reading is when there are lots of words that they don't know. So it is an unexpectedly important thing to just like address this question of how can you learn the most words possible. But it turns out that the best way of actually attacking that is not to just try to memorize a whole crap load of words. That actually fails. It just fails. It just fails. In fact, it can turn one off to reading. I've seen that happen before. Ordinarily, when we try to become better readers, we treat reading like it's a proverbial vegetable, right? This thing that kids don't like, but like it's good for them. Yeah, if you pursue it like that, it's not going to work, right? You're going to teach them to dislike it. What we want to do is have a way of actually making learning to read like eating the most delicious. Look at that. Look at this. It's amazing. I'm just so hungry right now. I had so much spaghetti for dinner, but now I'm hungry again. Okay. But a cake is a lot, right? I'm not going to stick my face into the entire cake. No, I'm not going to. No, don't do it. What we want is to have little bits of texts, little popsicle-like cake pops, right? That somebody can pop in their mouth, really the heck enjoy, and then focus on just understanding, reading, enjoying that one thing. In fact, let me take away even the word comprehending, even the word understanding. Let's just say they can focus on enjoying a little thing. Why such a little thing? I bring us to the idea of close reading. I'm not even going to the history of close reading because it's so cool, but would take us afield of what we were talking about, and we don't have very much time. Close reading is just reading the heck out of something, enjoying the heck out of something. Nabokov, the famous writer Lolita, also a famous lepidopterist, I think I said that word right. He was a scientist who studied butterflies. Said famously, a good reader, a major reader, an active and creative reader is okay, I'm going to let you do the thing again. You get one chance to type in one word. What word do you think goes at the end of this? Some of you who were part of the Calvin and Hobbes and Words Genius workshop that I did a couple months ago, you actually might remember this. Go for it. Oh, I like Jude. I like the word, just the word reader there, right? Like you can't be good at it. You can't be major at it. You can't be active or creative unless you do it. Just a reader. SAT coach is not the right word there. Although, to be clear, most of the SAT, like the really good SAT coaches I know are inveterate readers. The answer, 3, 2, 1 is... The answer that he said is, I don't think I actually wrote it down there, is rereader, R-E-reader. Somebody who just takes a thing and then turns it over and then turns it over again and then turns it over again and turns it over again. And if that seems crazy to you, that's fantastic, right? You don't need to be a literary novelist the way that Nabokov was. What we can do, though, is take these little cake pops of text that we can enjoy the heck out of and just try to overread them, try to reread them, try to really enjoy them again and again and again. You can do this with poetry. You can do this with song lyrics. You can do this with good quotes. You can do this with a lot of things. What we are going to do in this class is something that I think is just the best possible thing, which is Calvin and Hobbes. Here, you know what? I'm going to start by choosing an even shorter one of these. Okay, I'm going to read the first one of these just to give a sense of this. Ring! Didn't you hear the bell? Recess is over. It's time to go in. I'm not done yet. It takes me more than one recess to wear myself into a state of submission. Is this funny? Is this not funny to you? Either answer is fine. This is a tiny little gem of a text, right? If you didn't enjoy this, great. You can throw it away. Go on with your life. It's perfectly fine. This is Calvin and Hobbes. If you don't know this, this is Calvin and Hobbes. What I love about this is every single strip is its own tiny little story. There are words in there. Sometimes there are really big words in here, right? What does state of submission mean? What is the joke here? You can even ask with this. There are pictures, of course, you kind of get the sense of it. Every single Calvin and Hobbes strip, and comic strip in general, is a piece of micro literature. It's something that it becomes so easy to do close reading on. So here is what the class is going to be. We'll do a couple more of these in the future. Let me actually hold on for a second. Here. Yes. There are 4 steps. As I've made this giant curriculum for people to read Calvin and Hobbes and really enjoy the heck out of Calvin and Hobbes and really learn to love reading by learning to love reading Calvin and Hobbes. 4 steps for this. The first step is to actually just read the strip and fall in love with it. This is the most important step. That's why I draw it at the bottom there. It is literally the foundation for everything else. If we get to the point where you are in this class and you are not you or your kid is not enjoying it, where it is actually even a slight I don't want to do this. Seriousness requires full. Please drop the class and we will refund we will prorate you. We'll refund however much of the class you did not take. It is the worst possible situation is if we do this and we make even Calvin and Hobbes something that people hate to read. Please bail before that. So the four steps are, first of all, just to read Calvin and Hobbes and to love Calvin and Hobbes. Do nothing else beyond that. The second step is to ask questions about it. This is me part of the homework. Every week, 20 pages, about 20 pages. I'll send the syllabus out soon. About 20 pages of reading Calvin and Hobbes. What was I going to go to? Yeah. I want to point out that this strip, that's what I was going to go to. That this strip, these 2 strips together is 1 page. This does not take very long to read, right? The idea of 20 pages, I'm actually worried that maybe 20 pages is still too much. If we all find that, we can scale it down to 15 or even 10 or something like that. when I've done this before with individual kids, even with actually groups of kids, with classes of kids, we've only done 10 pages. I think there might be a way of making it so that if some people want to go down to 10 pages, they can read like the first 10 pages of every 20-page section, so we can make it not too intensive for that. Kind of thinking out loud. Well, I'm not thinking out loud here. I hadn't thought about that before, but I'm not entirely sure how we do it. But if 20 pages proves to be too much for you, you can make it less. Okay, so the first thing is to read it in the 20 pages and love it. Sorry, I'm talking too quickly. The second step is to ask questions. Here's what you need to do. At home, as part of the homework, if you join this class, read them again and read them out loud. Underline the stuff that you don't know. So, with this one, what might you underline? I don't know. I mean, you might say, like, I don't know what the word submission means. I mean, I maybe have a sense of it, but I don't really know what it means. And I don't really know what the phrase a state of submission means. It sounds like it means something slightly different than just submission. Right? Maybe. It's not just like high-level vocabulary that you might want to underline in this sort of situation. You also might just say like, what is a cultural reference that's going on here? Well, that sounds weird to say. I don't understand what the bell means. What kind of bell are we talking about, right? Like if you're a homeschooler, if you grew up without going to school at all, like you might not know about the whole bell thing that people use. There are some cultures where their schools do not use bells. Yeah, so the second time you go through it and ask questions, which is to say, underline stuff. Does this make sense so far? So we could do some more of these. Here, let's actually have someone volunteer. Go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like right now to volunteer to do Calvin's part. I'll do Susie's part. Vihan, go for it. First of all, Vihan, go ahead and hit the unmute button. It's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you so much for volunteering. Vihan, if you totally screw all of this up, it will be fine. It'll be totally fine. And I just want to emphasize that when we do this in class, you will have read these things out loud and read these and enjoyed these before we come to class. So this is actually kind of a weird way of doing this. Vihan, go ahead and hit the unmute button. Great. Vihan, go ahead and read Calvin's first thing here. Oh, I apologize. I think we can't hear you. Oh no! I'm gonna hit. Would somebody else be willing to raise your hand and volunteer? Oh, good. We can hear you. Okay, we can hear you now. Great, go for it. Read it again, please.
Okay. Susie, do you want to trade Captain Napalm bubblegum cards?
And I loved how you did that with your voice, right? This ends up being a really important thing when people are learning to read really well. When we do this kind of close reading, over reading, to actually not just like say, Susie, do you want to trade Captain Napalm, right? But to like give it meaning. There's been some interesting research that I've read too long ago to really remember about like the desperate importance and utility of like reading like this. Perfect job. Okay, Vihan, go ahead. Next one.
After chewing $20 worth of bubblegum, I've collected all the cards except for 8 and 34.
Keep going.
Oh. I'll trade you any duplicate for either of those.
Fantastic job reading again. Susie says, I don't collect Captain Napalm bubblegum cards. To which Calvin says in response as he walks away, go for it.
It must be depressing to live life without any purpose.
Okay, so everyone go ahead and I'll put the chat back on. Go ahead and just write down things that you might like to underline, which is to say, ask a question about, which is to say that something that you don't totally understand. Captain Napalm is so good here, yes. Nothing else? Nothing else? Yeah, what is a bubblegum card? Is a bubblegum card a card made out of bubblegum? Where bubblegum cards, the card. Oh, sorry, right in the first one. Bubblegum cards. Excellent. Depressing. Excellent. There's one other thing that please restrict what you are writing to not answer people's questions, but just to say these things. No one said it. But the word napalm. What does the word napalm by itself mean, right? You know what the word captain means. But to understand Captain Napalm, you have to understand Captain Napalm and Captain Napalm, right? Some of the two things is more, the sum is more, the total is more than the sum of its parts. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. That's the phrase that we use in this sort of situation. Fantastic. You might also say, like, wait, why is he trading? Why is he trading duplicate? What is a duplicate of a card, and why is he trading anything like this? Why do people trade these cards back and forth? Do you see what's going on right now? We're taking this text really seriously. We're not just like reading to get through. We're not just reading to find the joke. We're reading to really understand it. This kind of reading is not what you want to do in the rest of your life, but it's like the intense sort of practice that when you get good at it, you become so much better at all of the other reading that you do. So, that's step 2. Asking questions. The next step that you do at home for the homework is to master these. Hold on. I've got to remember right now. Do we do this next step? We do this next step before we meet. Yeah, very good. The last part comes, the lock-in comes after each lesson, but master comes here. Here's what I've done, and I'm like too proud of this possibly. I have gone through a crap load of Calvin and Hobbes books, and I have taken not all of, but a lot of the words that people might not know, common not to know, and in context, defined what they mean and given the pronunciation for all the ones that I thought were hard, right? Like if you don't know what it means to be psychokinetic, there you go. If you don't know what processed mouse loaf means, processed, we could talk about what that means, but you wouldn't really know what he's talking about. I have processed mouse loaf means I have mouse lunch meats. It looks like egg salad, right? What is egg salad exactly? Well, it's a whole lot of things that you can know right there. I put some stars next to the ones that like are particularly crucial for understanding if that is a useful thing for you. I don't know if we'll do this for the homicidal cycle jungle cat, the one that we'll actually do in class. This is for an elementary school class I taught before, where some people have the option to just do 10 words a week instead of all the words. We won't be offering that option for this because, well, I don't know. Maybe we could even. If anyone's interested, let me know. Yeah, you get the sense for this. So I'm gonna give this to you. I will send you every week a packet. This packet that has, in fact, 20 different pages. Well, it has all the vocabulary words. We'll call this our Calvin and Hobbes dictionary from 20 pages of Calvin Hobbes. The 20 pages of Calvin Hobbes that we're reading for that week. That way, you can really quickly have this cheat sheet of what things mean, so you can learn it really, really quickly. I love this. Okay. When I invented this method, I was just I'm insufferable. You understand this, right? If you know me, you know this. What you will do when you do this is, there's 2 parts of this, right? Let me turn the snapping off here. So, there's the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And what you want to do is, first of all, when you're reading, go ahead and look at both of these sides because, you can just get help with that. But then, after you go through and you underline, and you're like, I wonder what these things mean. Then you can go through the whole thing of this, and you can cover up the right-hand column and say, what is that? When you think about how well basic appliances work, it's hard to believe anyone ever gets in an airplane. The purpose of having the context in there, of course, is to actually sort of spark your memory to exactly what was being talked about, because context is everything in learning vocabulary. But then you're quizzing yourself, right? You're covering up the left-hand side, you're quizzing yourself. And then you can have, if you're a kid, you can have your parent quiz you. If you're a parent, you can have your kid quiz you. If you're a kid, you can quiz your parents, right? And go in whatever way you want. You can use this with siblings to one another. And then, you see if you can get it right. Machines like toasters is what he means in the context of this particular one. But, like washers, dryers, that sort of thing. Blenders. And you're wondering right now, well, do I need to know the exact wording of this? No, you don't. You don't. But the purpose of this whole setup is so you can, having it in 2 different columns, so you can quiz yourself. It turns out that you only really remember things when you You hide them from yourself and try to force yourself to remember. That is what burns it into your memory. And then we will meet. In our lessons, we will do a few different things. One, I will pick some of the strips from those 20 pages that I most enjoyed and would most just delight in reading together with y'all. You know, hopefully, what's the quote? One catches love, right? From a teacher. A really good teacher, one of the things that they will do is they will help you catch their love. Part of what my goal in this is to do is help you fall in love with Calvin and Hobbes by just how much I love it. And by reading some of these best ones together, that you learn, you just experience the joy of it as well. So we'll be doing that. Everyone will also get a chance to ask any questions about any of the strips, right? I don't understand on page 13 what he meant when he said blah. I know in your dictionary. Why are you talking like that? That's weird. I know in your dictionary you said blah, but that still doesn't make any sense to me. Or page 7. I don't know. I'm going to stop talking like that. On page 17, you said that, well, you didn't even address what is going on there. I don't understand what's going on there. It's so weird. What the heck is going on there? Right? Talk about that. When we have extra time, also, we will, what's the phrase? Also, we'll talk about like what some of the jokes mean. Like, why is a certain thing funny? This is fantastic because this allows us to get into the philosophy of humor. I really like talking about the philosophy of humor. It's the sort of philosophy that once you learn it, you see it everywhere. And you can become funnier. So in some weird way, this whole Calvin and Hobbes and vocabulary close reading class is actually designed to be a machine that helps you become a funnier human being. Is a thing. Final thing with this is that it would all suck if that was it, because then you'd forget it, because everyone forgets everything. We want to preserve these words in your long-term memories until you hear them the next time, and then the next time after that, and then it'll be a cycle, or until you start using them yourself. So what? How to remember something forever has been something that, for all of you who are in the science classes that I do, right, like you know about this because of the Anki cards, the memory cards that we make. The first time that you learn something, you really quickly forget it. This is one of the most known knowns in psychology, by Ebbinghaus in 1885. What was discovered by him was that if you very quickly repeat it at a very specific, mathematically predictable interval, like the next day, then you will begin to forget it again, because begin to forget everything pretty quickly. But you'll keep it for a heck of a lot longer. And then if you do it again, not the next day, right? This is a mathematical thing. This is called the spacing effect. You can look it up in Wikipedia. You can repeat it at the right intervals, and then you will remember it for a heck of a long time with even just a handful of repetitions. And every repetition just takes a little bit. I suppose I have some. What I've done is taked, and you're asking me to teach you words. Taked. I have taked some Calvin and Hobbes words, and I've made up a whole bunch of Anki cards. Anki is a free, in most contexts, spaced repetition flashcard app. I've made these cards. I'll make them even nicer than these. What it'll just give you is the quote from the book, and then the word bold-faced, that is the one that you don't know. And then you say, okay, do I know what chauffeur is? And then what I give is the thing that's on the left hand, the right-hand side of the Calvin and Hobbes dictionary, right? It says the answer in there. This allows you to check these things really easily. And you can see at the bottom, you have these choices: 1 minute for red, 9 minutes for, holy crap, 9.9 years. Yeah, you can see that actually my student who used this deck used this deck quite a lot. They probably saw this, I don't know, probably 9 or 10 times. Every time they saw it, and they said, yeah, I remember. I know what a chauffeur is now. It got saved for later. So, I will be showing some Anki power moves as we do this, for anyone who's interested. Okay. Hi. Let's talk about the class. It is now actually the top of the hour. So I think all of the important things have been talked about that I wanted to do. I will now just answer any and all questions that everybody has for this. David asks, what are the 20 pages? Fantastic question, David. Also, hi, David. So I'll be sending out a syllabus to anybody who signs up for this. We'll be reading the book Homicidal Cycle Jungle Cat. As soon as you sign up, you will get this in the mail. You probably want to sign up before class because, it'll take a few days to get there. Amazon has been slower lately than it used to be. If you already have a copy, then just say that in your intake form and we will not buy you one. But you want this exact copy. You don't want the sort of collected Calvin and Hobbes for reasons on this. So it'll be the first 20 pages in this, which will be pages 5 through 24 specifically for that. Can class cameras be off? Barrett asks. Excellent question. Only if your parent says so. And on the intake form, that is one of the questions that is asked, because I know that some people really don't want to have their cameras on. It will be a cameras on class unless you get so many people that it just doesn't make sense to do that as that. In which case, frankly, I'll discount everybody a few dollars because maybe you wanted cameras on class for this. What age group is this appropriate for? Fantastic question. Really hard to answer that question for a couple of reasons. One is Calvin and Hobbes is like universal, right? Like I know people with philosophy PhDs who reread Calvin and Hobbes. I know 6-year-olds who read Calvin and Hobbes. So we've specifically set the age of the class from 8 to 18 from this. So I'm going to say it may be good for you if you are within those ranges. Jenny asks, will I run the class again? Probably not. Maybe. I would say don't count on it, but if it's like really, really popular, maybe in the spring we will do just a different book of Calvin and Hobbes, because goodness knows there are a lot of them. Are the Anki cards available for download? Yes, absolutely, and I will be sending them out before every week. I should say specifically, you will get the Anki cards after we've talked about it in class, because I don't want people to try to memorize the Anki cards before they've loved the text, ask questions of the text, and try to master it from the dictionary sheets for that. How many sessions are there? There are 10 sessions. They begin next week and go all the way right before Christmas. How does Calvin have $20 to spend on bubblegum cards? I don't know how Calvin actually gets his money. That's a really interesting thing. Have I heard of Garbage Pail Kids? Yeah, wow. Blast from the 80s. What other questions have been asked? Possibly some at the beginning. One thing that we have changed from when we first advertised this, we said it's $150. It continues to be $150. But we've decided to make it per family. So however many siblings you have, fantabulous. Yeah. The part of the reason for that is that we wanted learning vocabulary is kind of a family enterprise, because if one person in the family knows the vocabulary, it's not that helpful. If everyone in the family knows the words, then that word suddenly becomes so much more helpful. Close reading is kind of a family value, a family practice. So we wanted to support families in general as much as possible for this. Another question was, will we advertise, what's the phrase? No. Will we record these lessons in order for people to listen to later? The answer to that is yes, we absolutely will. If you're part of the class, you do not actually need to come to the class. You can get the things later. I've got to tell you, I don't know how fun that is. I don't do much by sports. I'm not bragging. There's some certain kinds of nerds who are like, sports balls, who cares about? I'm not like that. I actually think that is like a hole in my life. But I have friends who like sports, and they tell me that for reasons that I've never been able to really understand, watching a recorded football game has no similarity to watching a live football game. I don't know what it is. They don't know what it is. But I wonder if this is the sort of class, not like the science classes that I do, right? We actually, I think, have more people who get the rooms recorded than we do people who come there live. But I wonder with this, if there's actually like some, no, you want to be there in order to feel like the woof of it. But you can totally get it there. Are there any other questions that anybody has? Feel free to raise your hand and you can ask a question out loud. You know what? While anyone thinks about that, let me just show you. You can go. We're past time. Why are you people even still here? But just since maybe it would be helpful to buy some more time for somebody to think of something. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do... Oh. Anki is the name of that software. But all of this will be... You'll get links to all of this. It'll be great. It'll be great. That is the lock it in step for all of this. And I just emphasize again that all of this could be ruined if you try to force the lock it in before you try to master it. It could also be ruined if you try to master it before you ask questions. If you go to the dictionary before you underline stuff. It could also be ruined if you try to ask questions before you love it, before you just read it for fun. In fact, if there's one thing I'd recommend, it's if you sign up for this and you get the book, don't start by reading the first 20 pages. Just like open the book up to a random spot and start reading there. You know how it is. Maybe. Sorry. Kids, you go to college and you sign up for some sort of class. You see some sort of class offered, like, oh my gosh, I've been so interested in that topic my entire life. I'm so happy that we finally get somebody to teach a class on this. Wow! And then like you come to the class and there's the syllabus and it's like, all the books I've most wanted to read ever. Wow! And then like, it's like, okay, for week 2, read 50 pages of this book. You're like, oh gosh, do I have to? There's something about a reading being assigned that really hurts its ability to be loved. We're playing with flipping fire here. So I want to be so careful toward that. Oh, fantastic question. Does one have to read aloud in class? No, no, no. And in fact, we're going to find a way. In the intake form, there is a thing to say like, please do not call upon my kid to read in class. I'll be asking for volunteers every time. But like if there's no volunteers, like probably we want to have some people read it. And like, I think there's a certain situation in life. In my science classes, I virtually never call on anyone, right? Like who's not already like raising a finger or wants to be called upon. But I feel like in this sort of situation, maybe it's like, oh, like I don't want to volunteer every time because that's weird. But like, like I'm willing to like read if called upon. So we're going to kind of like come up with a middle section of that. So yeah, if you do not want to be part of the like middle section of people who might be called on like in a row or whatever, because I don't know, you have a stutter that you're embarrassed by. You don't need to be embarrassed by your stutter. People who stutter, my father has a major stuttering problem. I think I just said the word problem instead of problem, which is ironic in this context. Go ahead, have a stuttering problem. Work at it, it's hard. We can help, right? There are actually some strategies that I can maybe even help incorporate in the class. But if you're sensitive about that and you don't want to read aloud, cool. That's perfectly fine. We'll have a way of sort of you marking yourself to not be called on for that. My favorite Calvin and Hobbes strip, it's this one. Anyone want to do a ridiculous job of reading out loud Calvin from here? Go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to. Misha, go for it.
Wow, Calvin suddenly finds himself on his own sheet of notebook paper.
Sorry, it takes me a few seconds.
Fortunately, Calvin has been doodling all morning. Here's a tank. Please by how well it's rendered, Calvin climbs in. The blue ruled guidelines are no match for the tank's heavy treads. Calvin roars across the page anywhere he wants.
Keep going, keep going.
The school. Calvin fires directly into Miss Wormwood's classroom. Kids dive out the windows.
Holes from shells. It's Calvin, help! And then it says jail, and jail is crossed out, and it says school. Keep going in the yellow one.
Oh no! Miss Wormwood has come to put a stop to Calvin's fun. She fires again and again, but she's too big and mean.
Hand it over, Leonardo, and see me after class.
The arts are always the first to go in public schools.
That is so... Oh, Misha, you did such a great job there. Ah! This is maybe my favorite strip of all of the Calvin and Hobbes strip, in part because how incredibly inappropriate this is. This is the sort of thing that no one would even want to get away with anymore, right? I actually put this one in here because it is the most It's not even the most egregious example, but it's one of the most egregious examples of the fact that this strip was not made in the year 2022, right? This strip was started in 1985, ran to 1995, December 31st, 1995. Right? Like, look, like things that we do now. Oh gosh, how old is it? It's almost 40 years old. Holy crap, almost 40 years old. In 40 years, people will say, what the heck were they doing? What do they think that they were? I will say that the strip is almost timeless. It actually rarely does that, but sometimes it does. I love, in some ways, how inappropriate this strip is. This is maybe the worst of it, and this isn't even in the book that we'll be reading. No, I don't believe it is. I think this is in Days Are Just Packed. I'm not positive on that. And anyway, you just read it. Yeah, but I love how, in some ways, some of the insight that you can get from this is what things were like in another time. One of the parents, maybe you're here even right now, emailed me like, oh, like huge fans, like, you know, like we kind of like look the other way, you know, toward like the instances of sexism that are in there. Yeah, you know what? Like there is some like casual sexism. I can't pronounce words today. Sexism that are in it because it's not from today. If that's the sort of thing that like really totally turns you off, it'd be a really great reason to not read Calvin and Hobbes. What I love reading old texts with my kids, one of the reasons I really like it for is because it actually opens up that opportunity to say, oh, like this was the norm at the time. Things changed. How long is each class? Just a half an hour. Already we are 13 minutes longer than the actual class is. Why? I don't know, because it doesn't need to be that long. We're not going to read through every strip out loud. Ugh, it'd take forever. It'd be terrible. That would be terrible. It would kill the fun of it, right? Read some of the most fun ones or whatever. Are we using our code names? Emma asks. Emma, that is a fantastic question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. I'd actually be interested in maybe having people vote on that when they sign up for the class or something like that. A couple days ahead of time, I might put out a poll for that, or just think about it. I'm not sure. Will you have these discussions in the class? Yeah, Cornflower can be the questions of like sexism and yes, we totally will. So I'm just trying to think like what is appropriate for. The answer is, I did that. We had frank conversations about some of those things when I was an elementary school teacher in a private school. And now I own my own business. So if I did it then, why would I not do it now? If you are really opposed to having those kinds of conversations or having your kids hear those conversations, like that would be a good reason to maybe read Calvin and Hobbes, but not sign up for the class. I'm using your code names. How many classes are there? Okay. I think that's who we got. That's what we got. Okay. Folks, you're wonderful. Thank you very much for coming to this. If you are interested, we will start next Wednesday at the time that we started this thing right here. You can sign up even to the last minute. You can sign up even like, a couple weeks into class. That's fine, I guess. You can tell friends about this if it's more fun for you to come with a friend. I will say that one reason you might want to sign up early is because it's not even that we have limited seats, right? So you don't need to worry about that. But like we'll send you the book. And it'll take a few days to come. And you want to read ahead. But the first week, if you like, just come and be like, oh, I didn't do the reading yet because I didn't get the book. I'm not gonna like yell at you. I'm not gonna bite you. It's gonna be fine. It's Calvin and Hobbes. Cheer up. It's Calvin and Hobbes. All right, people. Goodbye. Thanks.
Record.